What's going on, everybody? John Arapoli here with my MMA news, and today's guest is coming off a win over Davey Grant by a split decision at UFC Vegas 43. I'm talking to Adrian Yanez here today. Adrian, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate the time, and congratulations on the win.
Man, thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I'm just happy that I got the win. It's been fun.
Yeah, man, and it's my pleasure to have you on now to talk about this fight. I know you did do an interview with James Lynch. He did actually cover it for us. So I'm just going to touch briefly on the fight. I do want to talk a little bit more about boxing and everything. But before I get into anything related to that, I just got to ask how you're feeling after that dog fight. Because, man, that was an absolute war. And as a fan, that was a fun fight to watch.
Man, it was definitely fun. The only thing that really sucks is my ear. My ear got swelled up right after the fight, and pretty much like doing the whole draining process, making sure that I close that gap up and everything. That's been the hardest part, and that's about it. Everything else has been smooth recovery. Yeah, after a war, your body feels sore and everything, but honestly, I'm good. The only thing that I have to worry about right now is my ear, and that's the biggest complaint from right now.
I know you posted a photo online of what they were doing. Why did you show off those magnets to the fans or kind of tell everybody what's going on with that?
Man, it definitely sucks. These magnets, yeah, like they're closing up the gap, because if you don't close it up, it's gonna refill back up with blood, and you don't want that because then that's whenever you end up giving that fat ear. Right now I'm never gonna have a pretty ear again, but it's the consolation prize. I don't have it fat anymore, so I'd rather it be small and ugly than fat and ugly.
Well, I'm hopeful that's going to clear up soon there. We'll get to see you back inside the octagon again there soon. But before we get into any of that, let's start getting into this fight here a little bit now. So the first round of that fight, your boxing, the best way to describe it, I guess, is masterful. It was so clean and accurate and sharp. Just take us through that first round and how you thought you did in it, because it looked fantastic from my end.
Man, I knew that he was going to swing wild, so I knew I had to be. I couldn't go out of character with that with the fight with him because, man, there's a lot of people that got wild with him and ended up getting knocked out. So it was just one of those things that I had to stay really tight, and I had to emphasize on being technical, being clean. I really had to emphasize that because, man, he got close with a couple of those shots, and I felt him, and I was like, yeah, I need to stay really, really technical. And I knew he was going to come out a little bit wild, so it just kind of was just one of those. I had to be technically sound, and whenever I was in there, I just had to make sure I made the small little adjustments from seeing, because he kept throwing those front kicks, and I knew he wanted to come start switching stances and start throwing the hook to the body, overhand left, and luckily I saw everything coming from a mile away, and I just pretty much was just like, if I just hit him with the straight shots, he's gonna beat his lunging and looping hooks. So that really helped out a lot.
And throughout the fight, not only that first round, but the second and third round as well, a lot of those shots that you were landing, they were right on the button, and like you were saying, they're long and straight shots. Were you surprised he was able to eat those shots? Because he was, and you too. You took a lot of shots yourself, but you guys gave out a lot of punishment there. Were you surprised he was able to take those shots?
Yeah, after that first round, after I rocked him with that left hook, because he threw the inside cut kick, and from the open stance, and I threw the left hook after that, and I just seen how it didn't really phase him too much. It rocked him, but it didn't phase him. And whenever he threw a right hook, and I bobbed and weaved under it, and I threw my own right and connected, and I saw that it hurt him, but it didn't phase him. I was like, okay, I really didn't aim with the intention to knock him out. I aimed with the intention to land. I wanted to land. I had switched up from power shots to instead of throwing at 100%, I started throwing at 75%, and just trying to be quick and trying to be sharp. Wasn't really focused on power, so I thought the accumulation by the end of it would have stopped him, but man, it was just, man, he's a tough guy. He's a super, super tough guy with a really durable chin, and man, that's what whenever I was fighting him, I knew I had to make that adjustment because I didn't want to blow my arms out trying to go gun for the knockout, and just had to make that small adjustment. But honestly, I just knew he's going to be a tough fighter. I knew it was going to be a hard task to get him out, but the fact that he was tough enough to survive those first initial shots, I was like, yeah, I got to switch my game plan up.
So I want to get your thoughts on rounds 2 and 3 as well here, because they were kind of pretty similar rounds. I know we did kind of get into a little bit of it there, how obviously you were dishing out a lot of long straight shots that were really clean. You had him busted up. Of course, he had his moments too. That he did land several big shots in it. Were you ever worried at all in those 2 rounds? Like, were you ever dazed at all when he landed a big shot? And were you ever worried that maybe he might have done something to swing, the judges' scorecards in his favor? Because obviously one judge had a 30-27. I don't really, we could get into that in a little bit. I'm not really sure how that judge scored that fight 30-27, but were you ever worried at all that he was doing enough to sway the judges?
Honestly, I think I trusted the judges a little bit too much, because in a lot of those rounds I was rolling with a lot of the punches. The punches weren't doing as much damage. There was a couple shots that did land solid and did land clean. But honestly, a lot of them weren't even landing. A lot of them hit my shoulder. A lot of them were rolling underneath. They weren't really hitting the mark. They might have been touching like my shoulders and everywhere else, but not too many of them were hitting my face. And even on those on a lot of those shoulder rolls, man, he was barely glancing at me. They were barely skidding off the side of my head. And like, I don't know, like what counts more, the shots that are gliding off the side of your head or whenever I'm landing my jabs? So like, and kind of going back, it's just, he had like one good flurry, I think in the second round where it was like in the center of the cage. He came forward, he threw like the first 2 punches landed, and he missed everything else. And I don't know. I felt like I was able to outclass him those rounds 2 and 3, but like I can see why round 2 is a little bit closer, because he did explode a little bit more in that round than in the third round. But in the third round, I felt like I kind of ran away with it, because even like closing out that round, if you're looking at the stats, I kind of ran away with the punches landed in that round. I think I had outlanded him like while the fight was going on, because I went back to watch the fight and I just remember seeing, I think he had landed like 23 punches by the time ESPN put the numbers up, and I was already at like 41, 42. So yeah, I felt pretty comfortable in that third round that I took it. But those judges, they're gonna see what they see. But I felt like I won that fight pretty handedly.
Is there something in your mind as a fighter that you wish judges could do? I don't know, would that be a schooling of some kind, some kind of difference here, because we're starting to see it a lot more and more where these scorecards are getting a little wacky. We're seeing it across all different states too, and all different jurisdictions. It's starting a little crazy.
Oh yeah, well I mean, I come from Texas where all the judges are a little bit screwy, man. So it's I didn't expect it to be that bad in the fight capital of the world. So it has been getting a little bit crazy, and there's a lot of scorecards that you see, and you're just kind of just like, damn, this isn't it, So it's definitely one of those where it's kind of like I see a lot of better scorecards whenever I see fighters who have retired and start judging. I've seen a lot of that like fix a lot of the problems. Like someone like in Texas, here in Texas, we have Jeff Rexroad. He's a judge. He's a ref. Like he's fought in MMA before. He was before LFA turned into Legacy. Until LFA turned into LFA, it was a Legacy Fighting Championship, and he was the 170-pound champ for LFC. And he's not a fighter anymore, but he's a judge. He's a ref, and every single time he's scoring the fight, I'm 100% confident that I trust his decision in scoring a fight, because he's done it before. He's been in a lot of those positions. He knows what to look. He knows what he knows what MMA fight is supposed to look like. So I believe whenever a fighter jumps into being a judge or a ref, I think it helps everything else out, because they know what to look at. And also too, like, they've been in the fights before. It's not these people that just or like that are 60 years old, never competed in the sport at all, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I think this guy won the fight because of this. It's like, well, you didn't see all these other things he was missing. I don't know. I think fighters turning to judges and refs is the best thing to happen.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. That's definitely a good solution to have. And now, if it's okay, I do want to get into what's been the big topic that I've been saying so far. You've heard me say it several times, right? Boxing, boxing, boxing. You don't see a lot of that in MMA, like that skill set that you had there. Just talk about that. Did you grow up boxing? How did you get that skill set like that to be so skillful with your hands like that?
Man, well, I grew up like watching boxing. Grew up watching boxing, the Friday night fights, all the time. We ordered all the big pay-per-views. Before, unfortunately, I didn't start off boxing. I started off with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My dad was the boxer growing up, and he did compete in boxing before he joined the military. But no, like I just kind of I don't know. Like after I did Jiu-Jitsu, and then I competed. Then I found my coach, my coach, Saul Solis. Like I just fell in love with the hands. I fell in love with punching people in the face. And then after I got my first knockout, like I was like, I really want to knock people out. And just on top of that, I've always kind of just like I always studied like the boxing techniques. I would study like a lot of the fighters that I felt were doing great things. Like I would study like Manny Pacquiao's footwork feints, and I would study Mayweather's defensive stuff, and I'd see someone like who's really good offensively, and then also like look at someone who had a really great jab like Oscar De La Hoya. I'd always consistently just like to learn and just like watch breakdowns of all these boxing guys. And right now the person who like I'm always watching videos and tapes of, or is someone like Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, all those guys, and even like Tank Davis, Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, all those guys, Devin Haney. Like I consistently like try to watch tapes on them and try to see what I can take from them and add it into the MMA game. And because like not everything's gonna be able to translate over perfectly, but it's just one of those things that I just think it's like it's a beautiful sport, and I just love like how defensively and offensively like the opportunities are like very vast. So it's pretty cool. Like it's just my love for boxing that like pretty much like makes me want to translate it over into MMA.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you too. I was going to ask you about some of the fighters that you study. I know you mentioned them there. I just did an interview recently with the Bellator fighter Cody Law, and he's a huge fan of Canelo Alvarez, and he'll watch every single Canelo fight ever, and he tries to incorporate some of that stuff into MMA the best he can. But when I was talking to him, like we had a conversation. I'm going to ask you this too. Obviously, MMA and boxing kind of different the way you approach striking, because obviously in MMA, if you come out with the heavy boxing approach, a lot of times it makes your leg vulnerable to, being kicked. So how exactly do you go about then translating these things that you watch and that you study from all these different fighters and incorporate it into MMA exactly when the striking is a little bit different?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can actually translate over. And man, one of those guys is actually like, if you just watch Canelo, a lot of his stuff is super you can translate it over. It's just a couple of like the distance things. You have to be in a closer distance. You can't be in the kicking range. If you're in the kicking range, you might as well just have your hands up for a parry instead of like doing a slip. Like there's a lot of things that you have to translate it over. It's just that you have to be comfortable with doing those things. And man, like the shoulder roll that the role that I was doing this past weekend, in certain fights I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that against someone who's like a really good kicker. Like there's reasons. There's some fighters who I'll fight completely different when it comes to boxing and all that stuff. Like Gustavo Lopez, like I was really a lot more patient in that fight. I kind of just gave him so much space because I knew he wanted to close the distance. So whenever he would try to close the distance, I would catch him in that closing of the distance area. Like someone like Davey Grant, I know he's not that good on the back foot, so I wanted to push him on the back foot and be in a range where I know he was going to look to explode all the time. And whenever he took those explosions, I was going to catch him in the middle of the explosion. And just there's just a lot of ways you can fight differently in every single fight. So it's the approach. It's the approach. So you can actually like this fight, like defensively minded. Like I was looking, I was rolling, I was bobbing and weaving. Someone who's a really good Thai fighter, I probably wouldn't bob and weave because man, the knee's right up the middle. Like someone's gonna try to time that and try to hit you with the knee up the middle. So there's times when to do it and there's times when not to do it. So it's just finding when do you feel comfortable doing it.
So as you said all that, the first thing that comes into my mind is, holy crap, this guy has such a high fight IQ. The way how you break everything down, the way how you see everything down, and I'm sure a lot of that comes from your coach. I know he just recently passed away. He wasn't with you, obviously for this fight. I believe he wasn't with you for your last fight either. Just talk a little bit about him and how much he's meant to you and what it's been like without him in the corner.
Man, that was actually super hard because I'm so used to hearing him in the corner, and like every time I've gone to the corner, it's always been like a conversation. It's never been uh a like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like he'd be like, hey, like you see him doing this, and I'd be like, yeah, I see him doing this, like, and he's also doing this. Like, yeah, don't worry about that other thing. He's actually like this little thing is actually more detrimental than that. He's like, focus on this and you'll see how that affects the other thing. And like it was always kind of like a conversation, and it always fit because man, like it just always fit because I would get that so much more than like someone telling me like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that, you need to do that. Like, and that, like, I don't know, I'm just gonna miss that because like the energy that he always brought was always like it was super important for me because that man, he pretty much took me from a fighter from 17 18 years old to like now. Like he brought me into like the UFC. He got me UFC ready, and now that I'm here, it's kind of just like, man, like the one guy who I wanted to be here with me is not here, so that sucks a lot.
Well, my condolences, and I can tell you that he did a fantastic job teaching you things because you have such a great IQ when it comes to fighting. And I know since he's passed, you kind of taken over the leadership role at the gym, and you're training a lot of fighters now. How's that aspect been now of getting into coaching and working with different people and getting them ready for fights as opposed to just worrying about yourself?
Yeah, it's pretty cool because like it was a little bit stressful at first because I had to like I was kind of having trouble of like wearing two hats at the same time. I had to put on my fighter cap and put on a coach cap and try and like, but just trying to mesh and trying to like experimenting with that was actually really fun just because of the fact that like I have to take myself away from it at times and just be a coach, and sometimes I put myself in full fighter mode and everything. So it was really cool experimenting with that, but also I'm kind of glad that I'm kind of done with that part and I know exactly what I want to do now. Because man, like it's super insightful and it's super helpful because now you have to pay a little bit more attention. You have to do a lot more things. You have to be a wrestler for the wrestler. You have to be a striker for the striker. You have to be MMA. You have to be 100% MMA guy for the MMA guys. You have to make sure that they correlate everything in together. I'm not. What I want to do is I want to give the wrestler just a little bit more hands so he can get better, so he can translate into the wrestling. I want to get his wrestling better. And then also I want to get the striker to have a little bit more wrestling and better jiu-jitsu. For him to actually like keep the feet standing up on his feet. So it's like it's really cool because you had to like mesh all these different types of characteristics of people and try to make it work better for them. And then after that, it helped, and overall it helps me and it helps me understand my game and what exactly I need to do. And seeing all the holes that everybody else helps close my holes in my game as well too. So it's really, really cool because you have to pour yourself out and look at the overall picture, and it all just helps, man. It's been amazing just kind of just doing two things at once, and it kind of helps keep your mind busy off a lot of things.
Yeah, another thing I want to ask you too when it comes to coaching, I experienced coaching for a little bit. So I came from a track background. I competed at Lock Haven University, Division II school here in Pennsylvania, and I threw on the track team for a few years. And after I got out of college, I went back and started coaching high school. One of the things that I learned from coaching is the way you approach, right? Things you could tell athlete A of how to understand what you want them to do is different than how you would tell athlete B, and you kind of have to learn how to, get inside the personality of each person and what motivates them and what clicks for them to understand things. Do you experience that too in the gym? Like, is it different? Same way, like this athlete, the way you talk to them is different how you talk to an athlete on the other side of the room, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Like one of the person that was really big on that was my coach Saul. Like for me, he never talked to me. He never had to yell at me to get anything done. He just said, "Hey, I want this done." And I'd go out there and I'd go do it, no questions asked, consistently. I never questioned. But there's some people that he would just sit back and just yell, like he had had to yell at the top of his lungs that they would need to be doing. And yeah, like I learned a while back ago that hey, some people are gonna need to be taught differently. There's some people that need a boot in their ass, and there's some people that just need a hey, like you gotta go, like they just need to be talked to. And so yeah, that helped me learn a lot. And that's also another thing that I was kind of like I'm still trying to figure out, like trying to gauge distance with a lot of these guys, because a lot of these guys, they don't take well to being talked to. They're like they feel like they need to be yelled at a little bit. And some of these guys kind of like you can't yell at them. You have to kind of talk to them like an adult. Or some people are just like how do you say it? You have to trick them into doing these things. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things that you have to do. So it's cool working with so many different characteristics of people. And there's like some people that you have to kind of keep you have to kind of keep what's it called tabs on everybody. So it's been pretty cool just being in this role, and I actually really love it.
Yeah, I can tell that you do, and you're going to do great things in the coaching world, just like you're doing great things in the MMA world right now. In closing, I want to ask you about that fight of the night bonus that you got. I know you're about to become a father there. What do you do with that money? Is that all money go all to the kid that you're about to arrive into the world, or do you kind of use it for Christmas presents? Just put it into the savings account?
There's a lot of things, man. I've been blessed to get a couple of bonuses in my career already, and I'm actually in one of these places, like my house. Bought a house, so yeah, this is pretty cool for me, man. Like it's still all kind of just hitting me like kind of surreal, if that makes sense. But yeah, like the bonuses kind of just went into me buying a house, and then this extra bonus is gonna go into me like with the baby stuff, and it's fun, man. I'm loving this. I'm loving all of it, man, because it's like I didn't feel like I was an adult before, but now I feel like so much more of an adult now, because I got a house, got a family on the way, and now I'm just like kind of settling in and moving stuff in. Like I got a lot of stuff here that I still need to unpack, because all that stuff was going on, all like buying the house, doing all the training and all that stuff was at the same time of me training for this fight. So I was super busy this fight.
I bet you were, man. And one last thing now before you roll out, social media, management, sponsors, anybody you want to give a shout out to that you haven't done so yet, please feel free to do so. Floor is yours.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Man, I want to give a shout out to my coach, Dawson Lease. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. Big shout out to my management team, Iridium Sports Agency, Jason House, all those guys at CAP. They do an amazing job to make sure that I'm good. Jason Parga, Jeremy, Lance. I know I'm forgetting a couple people, but they all do amazing things for me. Another one, because he's gonna get mad if I don't shout him out. Coach Phil, Coach Phil has been really instrumental in my camp, running my strength and conditioning. He's also kind of just making sure that all of us kind of stick together and making sure that we're all keeping each other accountable during these times, and it's been amazing just to have him around, because he's done a lot of great things, and he was also around a lot of like team sports. Like he was a part of the Dallas Cowboys strength conditioning stuff, and just a part of their team for a while. And he just loves the team environment. So he's been helping us keep all of our stuff kind of pretty compact during a time of disarray. So he's been really instrumental. So I really respect the guy so much. And also thank you for the platform. This has been amazing. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Adrian Yanez. Again, thanks, Adrian, so much for the time here today. Really appreciate it. Great conversation. It was great picking your brain on a few different topics there. So again, thanks for the time, and thank you guys for watching this interview. I really appreciate everyone that does. If you like today's interview, please go to the bottom, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Also, keep going to My MMA News to check out our great work and go to our social media pages. Give us a like and a follow on there. And if you want to find me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm at John Arapoli. We'll see you later, everybody.